What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Thrive by Nutrition podcast. It's been a while since I've come on here and put on a podcast episode. I want to start doing these more frequently, and I want to start doing, maybe shorter ones. They don't always have to be an hour long. Maybe they can be 15 to 20 minutes, just to kind of give you guys a rundown on certain topics and give you guys the information that you guys can really apply to your everyday lives or whatever goal you have in your fitness, nutrition journey, whatever it is. Today I wanted to talk about reverse dieting, and I wanted to go over the basics on what a reverse diet is, how you would implement it, why you would even implement it, and when you would implement it, and things to kind of expect when you are doing a reverse diet. So, number one, what in the world is a reverse diet? So, a reverse diet is basically when you are increasing your calories slowly over time, trying to get back to your maintenance calorie level after you just finished up a fat loss phase. So let's say you're maintaining your weight on 3,000 calories. You do maybe a 10 to 12 week cut, something like that, and you lose 10 to 15 pounds. And throughout that process, you end up getting down to about 2,300 calories per day, and you want to get your calories back up to that 3,000 calorie mark with minimal fat gain, and you don't want to lose any of the fat loss progress that you made during that time. So reverse dieting is basically, what you would expect by the definition is you are reversing the diet to where you are slowly increasing calories, adding calories into your diet every single day, week to week, to try to get back up to that 3,000 calorie mark so we can hopefully maintain our weight on our old maintenance calories, even though we are at a reduced body weight. Not everybody will be able to, maintain their body weight at that old calorie mark, just because they have less body mass in general and they weigh less, so they're carrying around less. They have less metabolically active tissue on them, so their metabolism is just going to be a little slower just because they simply weigh less. But a lot of people can get back up to that mark, or at least get pretty close to it. So reverse dieting is a way to slowly increase your calories over time to get back to that 3,000 calorie mark that you were at before. How slow are we supposed to increase these calories? Some people might recommend that you increase calories from 50 to 100 every week, or you do it for a week. See, how the scale fluctuates. You see how your body kind of changes the mirror, your energy levels, and then possibly increase, 50 to 100 calories more the next week, and then the next week. It really depends, honestly, and it's very, very individual. That's why it's really good to have an educated coach to kind of guide you through the process, and they can kind of pick up on things and make sure you're implementing it, correctly and at a good pace. But I like to think of it in a very flexible manner. So I don't like to think of, I'm going to increase 100 calories every week for the next 7 weeks, and I'm going to be back up to 3,000 or something. It's far more, individual than that, and you can see variation sometimes. If you are in this certain part of your life, or you're doing, this kind of everyday job, this kind of gym routine, sometimes you can increase those calories a lot faster. But then other times, when you are more sedentary, sitting around more, you're doing a different kind of gym routine, you'll actually have to go a little bit slower. And I'm going to talk about that a little more in this podcast on, what situations you might be able to increase a little faster and what situations you might want to increase a little slower. But a good rule of thumb is, I think that what you can do is you can increase calories by, roughly probably 5 to 10% of what you're currently taking in at a time. So this is going to vary, obviously, depending on how many calories you're consuming each day. But let's say, the example I gave before, you're somebody who's eating 2,300 calories per day. Your first increase, I would recommend probably around 5% of your calories, maybe up to 10%. So 5% of 2,300 is about 120 calories roughly, and then 10% at the high end would be about 230 calories. So I think, it's pretty safe to do a 120 to 230 calorie jump initially. Do that for maybe a week. see, how your scale weight is going. Your scale weight probably will gradually go up. And this is something I want to talk about a little more too, but you'll probably see it go up a little bit just from extra water retention because you are just eating more food. So you're probably going to have more carbs and more sodium that you're eating, which equals more water retention. And then you'll also probably see a little weight gain, maybe not initially that much, but over the course of, however long you're increasing your calories up, you'll probably see some weight gain simply from just having more food in your system. Frankly, you're just going to be full of shit, but probably not, you're probably not going to have a whole lot more food in your system just from 120 to 230 calories. But if you are, at the very end, you're eating 700 calories more per day, that food can add up, and that could make, maybe, a quarter of a pound difference on the scale or something like that. So those are just some things to keep in mind that you might see the scale, go up initially, but it's probably just water weight from, extra carbs and sodium. So like I said, 5 to 10% increase the first week. Kind of look at how you are visually appearing in the mirror more. Look at how your energy levels are feeling throughout the day, how your workouts are going. Are you increasing your strength? Do you just feel more energy? Do you have less fatigue in between sets? Things like that. Those are things you should definitely be experiencing as you are increasing your calories up. And one thing to kind of keep in mind is that if your maintenance was 3,000 and you're down at 2,300, even though you increase your calories by 120 to 230, you're probably still in a calorie deficit, honestly. So a lot of people actually see fat loss in the initial phases of a reverse diet because they are technically still in a calorie deficit, and by increasing their food, they have more energy in the gym, so they're able to push themselves a little harder, so they burn a little more calories in the gym, and then they have to recover a little more because their workouts are more intense. And then also a thing called non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Some people call it NEAT. This is something that reduces kind of a lot when you are cutting. And it's very individual as well. Some people can honestly see like a 600 calorie decrease in their metabolic rate from just NEAT, non-exercise activity. This is things like, fidgeting, what I'm doing with my hands right now when I'm talking. This could be just kind of tapping your foot. This could be going on walks, going on hikes, talking more. Those types of things tend to downregulate or slow down if we are eating less calories for a significant period of time. So those things start to ramp up along with exercise, just being more intense because we have more fuel. And a lot of times, you end up breaking out of a fat loss plateau if you're in one by just increasing your calories a little bit. So a little tip for you guys, if you guys are in a fat loss plateau, you might want to try and keep increasing your calories by, 5 to 10%. See how your energy level feels, see how your NEAT feels, and you might actually see some extra fat loss by eating a little bit more than what you currently are. But nonetheless, do that for a week, see how you feel, and then, after that, increase another 5 to 10%. And then, monitor those same variables, your sleep, your digestion, your energy levels in the gym, your how you're feeling, that you look in the mirror, body weight. Take all of those factors. Don't just take your body weight and be like, oh, the scale went up 1 pound on average. That means that I should go slower. No, don't just take the scale into account. Take all of those variables into account, because like I said, the scale, a lot of the fluctuations we see or the gains we see, especially if they're minimal, like 0.5 to a pound, it's probably just water weight. So there's nothing wrong with holding more water just because you are eating more food. It's holding more water, especially if you're holding it intramuscularly, you're probably going to have better workouts. You're going to be more hydrated. So it's not a problem. There's nothing wrong with seeing the scale kind of go up during this process if it does, especially if it's slowly. So, this process can be repeated over and over until you get to roughly, 3,000 or whatever your maintenance is. And then from there, you can continue to try to push calories and maybe even go into a slight surplus if you want to, or you could just kind of stick around at that maintenance mark. But the key is to, probably not jump straight from 2,300 to 3,000 calories right away. Some people, if their metabolism is very adaptive, they can get away with that. But it's probably, if you really want to maintain all of the fat loss you just, achieved, it's probably your best bet to slowly increase your calories from 5 to 10%. And honestly, you could probably do increases a little quicker than every single week, depending on who you are. Like I said, it's very individual. Just every week is just a kind of generic recommendation, and it's usually the recommendation I would just give, just because that's when people check in with their coaches every single week. They send them over their data, and that's when they usually make adjustments. But if you're doing this yourself, which I've actually done it like this in the past, I've increased calories maybe every 2 to 3 days, honestly. And that's just because I can just feel my metabolism ramping up very quickly, and I can feel myself adapting to those extra calories very fast. And this is something that you'll learn as you go, if you kind of listen to your body as you're doing this process, listen to your different, feedback markers that we mentioned before, like body weight, how you look in the mirror, performance. But kind of a rule of thumb that I've kind of noticed, and I don't know if this is backed by science, this is just pure my observation, my opinion or hypothetical, whatever. I think that if you are doing very intense weightlifting and you are doing more auto-regulated weightlifting, which means you're using like RPEs instead of set weights that you use, or maybe you are, going for more reps if you have them in the tank, if you have the fuel or energy to hit those extra reps. So you basically don't have a strictly set routine or set weight and set reps that you do every single day without it changing at all based on how you feel. If you have a gym routine like that, that's more auto-regulated, and you can push yourself on the really good days and then back off on the days that don't feel so great. If you have that, as well as if you are doing a job throughout the day, maybe you work, on your feet, moving around a lot, walking around, doing things with your hands, you're pretty active. It doesn't have to be super strenuous, but you're just moving around a lot. If you have a job like that, working 8 hours per day doing that, you could probably increase your calories a little faster. And I'll tell you why now. So my estimation is that if you do have those variables, you have big fluctuations in your energy expenditure throughout the day based off of if you train and how much fuel you're eating. That dictates how well you train or how intense you train, and as well as NEAT, because things like your job, if you're walking around a lot, that's considered NEAT. So those things will all slow down if you are eating less calories, and there'll be a bigger variation between when you are eating at your maintenance calories or above maintenance versus when you are at your cutting calories. But if you are somebody who, let's say, I don't know, you're just doing cardio, you're just doing the same cardio routine, running on the treadmill for 20 minutes, same, 2.5 miles or something in that time, doing that same thing every time you go in the gym, and then your job is very sedentary and you're sitting down a lot, and you don't have any kind of variation in movement based off of how much you eat, or you don't have any possibility of variation in movement, then your metabolism is probably going to be pretty constant, like irrelevant on how many calories you're eating. It's probably not going to decrease very much from how many calories you're eating, and it's probably not going to increase very much if you increase the amount of calories you're eating. So because you have bigger variations, because you're just more active walking around throughout the day, and you can have bigger variations in the amount of energy you use when you are working out, then you probably will adapt very quickly to the higher calorie mark, or the higher calories that you're consuming, versus somebody who is very sedentary all the time and isn't doing intense lifting and tailoring their workouts to how they feel basically throughout the day. And then I want to talk about another scenario where someone will or should, excuse me, reverse diet. And this is one that a lot of clients come to me and they have this issue, and it really sucks having to kind of break this news to them. But it's important to put them on the right track for long-term success. But basically, if you're somebody who maybe you didn't necessarily lose a bunch of body weight or body fat, maybe you didn't necessarily just come out of a dieting phase, but if you're someone who's been chronically yo-yo dieting over and over and over, and maybe you drastically cut calories, lose a little bit of weight, and then you get frustrated because you're not losing the weight at the rate that you want to lose, and then you end up kind of binging and then just going off the rails and gaining a bunch of body fat back and not losing that body fat again, and then you kind of repeat that process, go on to the next fad diet or something. If you're a constant yo-yo dieter, there's a good chance that your metabolism is not going to be up to par. It's not going to be at what your true maintenance should be based off of your height, weight, age, sex, and physical activity level. So what we need to do with these individuals is we need to get them back up to that maintenance mark. And a lot of these people, they come to me or they come to other coaches and they want to initially start to lose body fat right away. And this just isn't really realistic because their metabolism has been so downregulated over and over to where, they don't have any calories to pull from to initiate a calorie deficit or initiate fat loss. So these individuals, that's another situation. You might not necessarily have lost body fat recently, but if you've constantly yo-yo dieted, you just have to go through this phase before you can even think about having another successful fat loss phase and have successful fat loss in the long term. But if you are doing a reverse diet, there are kind of three things you can expect. One, you can expect for nothing to change with your body composition, with your body weight. Some people, they adapt very quickly and they adapt very well, and they're able to get back up to their maintenance calories without any weight gain at all. Other people, like I said, they might actually see fat loss and maybe even a drop in body weight over this time just because their metabolism adapts so well and they're getting more energy, they're pushing themselves more in their workouts, they're doing more general non-exercise activity throughout the day, which leads them to a bigger calorie deficit, and they end up losing more weight and more body fat. And the third scenario, which does happen, and it's frustrating, but it's definitely important for the long term. But it's you might actually gain some body fat and body weight during this time, and it's completely normal. A lot of people, see this happen when they do a reverse diet, and it's not an excuse to stop the reverse diet because the reverse diet is so important for your long term success. In whatever dieting phase or body composition phase you're in. But a lot of people do, and there's nothing really you can do about it other than to, make small increases when you can and just accept the fact that, maybe gaining, 5 pounds right now in order to lose another 10 to 15 pounds in the future and keep that off is 100% worth it. And, it's that old saying where sometimes you have to take one step back to take 2 steps forward, and it's perfectly acceptable. You just always have to keep your mind locked into the long-term goal, whatever it is you have. So I'm going to wrap up the podcast here. Hope you guys liked this kind of quick rundown and getting the basics with the reverse diet. If you are interested to learn more, definitely send me a DM, send me a message. I'd love to kind of elaborate more on a reverse diet and how to implement it and help you guys out if you're trying to do it with yourselves. And then if you want, obviously, more individual help, definitely send me a DM if you're interested in, one-on-one online coaching. And, I can help you step-by-step, a little more in-depth, one-on-one, So I hope you guys like this podcast, and see you guys in the next one.